Really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
But I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm easy enough to find on all the usual socials, and I always love to hear from you. Well, there was some seriously exciting rugby on offer this weekend, so why don't we get this thing on the road really quickly. For current updates, I'm going to stick with the theme we've been on for a couple weeks now. My son's baseball team is still undefeated, and the games have been really fun. Like, I promise I'm not going to go on and on about it, though some of you might think this already qualifies, but there is a vibe about this team this year. I'm really into it. Like, the anxiety that was plaguing me last season mostly gone away. And you know what? We're all having fun, which I keep telling him and myself is the most important thing. So fingers crossed for that. We are going to skip the news this weekend and jump right to our reviews. I thought we'd start with the URC. There was so much great happening. There was only 2 games left in the year, of course, and a lot at stake. On Friday, we had 2 fixtures, the first of which came to us from Durban. It was the 4th place Sharks taking on 11th place Ospreys. And it was the visitors taking an early lead before Sharks remembered that they have like 72 Springboks on their team and jumped ahead. Speaking of Springboks, however, potentially devastating news for the Sharks as Eben Etzebeth had to be helped off the field after suffering what the comms felt comfortable predicting was an MCL injury. I was hoping it was just a hard knock, but the sight of the medical cart coming out to fetch him did not bode well. It took Ospreys till just before the final quarter to get their first try. Got to say, though, their driving ball is a real weapon, but it was too little, too late. With a final penalty by Masuku right on the 80-minute mark, Ospreys' playoff hopes went up in smoke, 29-10, as a disappointing campaign winds down. After that, it was 9th place Munster versus 12th place Ulster from Thomond Park. The comms said it was an emotional night for Peter O'Mahony, which frankly is not a believable proposition. It was a close contest in the first half, but it was also a microcosm of all the things these teams have been doing badly all year. Ulster constantly making silly handling errors, while Munster tried to use their line-out as an interpretive dance to represent the word shambolic. As I said, however, it was bang, back and forth. Munster taking a 24-20 lead as we went to intermission. As we got ready for the second half, the comms pointed out that Munster had missed 12 tackles while Ulster had already missed a whopping 18. Munster really took control in the second half. Side note, I've spent a lot of time throwing shade at Peter O'Mahony, but regular listeners will know or have sensed that I actually love the guy. Like, he's the quintessence of the guy you want on your team, but hate on every other team. So just before leaving the pitch in this one, he scored a wondrous, angry try, taking an extra moment to sort of spike it down like it was completely unnecessary and perfectly him. And if we're witnessing his swan song, I have to stand up and applaud. I am going to miss hating that guy. It was a fitting end. Munster winning 38-20. Ulster a way to lick their wounds and think about what might have been. Final side note, though, Jacob Stockdale has been phenomenal this season. I'm still sad he hasn't gotten more recognition in the wider Ireland squad. I know there's been injury issues, but he's been on fire this year and it's been wasted on this ridiculous team. On Saturday, we began with a surprisingly high-powered matchup between number 3 Bulls and number 5 Cardiff. It was more bad news for a South African team. Eben going down last night and Johan Goosen leaving with what looked like a knee injury today. Cardiff, they were in the market for a point, a losing bonus point, a try bonus point, anything at all. But, the first half looked grim. The Bulls shutting them out 31-0. Cardiff worked hard the whole way. They had one final shot at getting a try bonus point, but it was not to be. The Bulls holding on for a 45-21 victory. 8th place Benetton were hosting 2nd place Glasgow, who I worried out loud might be in a bit of a tailspin at exactly the wrong time of the season. Their selection looked a little bit off-brand, and Benetton were looking to make a point in front of a great home crowd. It was 19-0 at halftime. Could have been more if Jacob Umanga's kicking boot had not been so kind of off-kilter. The Warriors put on a bit of a stinker. It was Benetton winning a big one, 33-7 at the Stadio Monigo. 6th place Stormers, they were also down in the Rainbow Nation, hosting the corpse of the bottom-dwelling Dragons. It was a good old-fashioned quadruple up. Stormers winning 48-12. No need to dwell on this one, and I really, really feel for Dragons fans. Man, it must be tough. Anyway, speaking of corpses, the artist formerly known as Connacht, currently in 14th place on the table. They were back at the Half a Sports Ground to face Edinburgh, currently 10th, but somehow clinging to some sort of mathematical hope. The first half was all visitors, going up 14, but Connacht fought back. They tied it up just before. Wow. More bad news this weekend. Mosisi Tuapulatu had to be taken off the field on a stretcher. Like everyone seems to be falling apart at the same moment, just in time for a playoff push. Oh, wait, they already. Anyway, Charlie Shield made a huge break and streaked down for a go-ahead try. The Coms openly disgusted by Connacht's defense. The visitors would add another 3 thanks to Ben Healy. Yeah, remember him? He must have been psyched to be sitting at the adults table for a change. And 10 points would be the difference, 21-31, the final score for my guys' final home game of the season, an absolute crusher of a year. Anyway, league leading Leinster, they were hosting 15th place Zebre. I was really curious about this one. So the obvious prediction would have been Leinster by like 120, especially given how mad they'd be after losing a Champions Cup semifinal. And yes, I'm still really enjoying saying those words in that order. But there was, at that end of that game, there's a lot of visible frustration as well, particularly from Jordi O'Barrett. He looked absolutely pissed last weekend after getting bumped from the starting lineup. Would he be in a primal rage or completely fed up? As it turned out, I was way overthinking it, as Leinster went right back to being a buzzsaw, destroying a stunned Zebre side 12 tries to 1, setting a new record for margin of victory, 76-5. Woof. Sunday gave us another surprising one, 13th place Lions hosting 7th place Scarlets. I'm just going to ask, do the Lions need to move to a smaller stadium? Like, there were so few people there, I feel like I could have just counted them in the first quarter. It's impossible to have good atmosphere when 199 out of every 200 seats is completely empty. It's so weird. Anyway, I had high hopes for the Scarlets in this one, which is a cool feeling. Like, if you told me that they'd be higher ranked and potentially favorites in Johannesburg before the season started, I mean, that would have seemed impossible, right? In any case, Scarlets, they looked pretty good. They got a drop goal from Costello to make it 7-17 at halftime. But Richard Creel, who of course looks like a Kid Rock superfan, he got the Lions back into it early in the second stanza. Got to hand it to him, though. The visitors really took care of business, taking down the Lions 19-32. And the end of the season is really unfolding nicely for the Scarlets. It's exciting, and my friend Hugh must be trying desperately to stay cool. Hugh, if your guys sneak in, I think they're peaking at the right moment, and everyone else is busy getting injured. So we shall see what we shall see. So with one final round to play in the regular season, Ospreys, Ulster, Lions, Connacht, Zebre, and Dragons will all be playing for pride alone, which is ironic in the case of the Lions, while Edinburgh and Cardiff, still on the outside, have a slim chance of sneaking in. The big fixture, the final round, might well be Munster versus Benetton, with both teams locked at 46 points. So it's a match that could be do or die for both sides. Scarlets, I think, are still in the bubble, but looking good, while Leinster, Bulls, Glasgow, and Sharks, and Stormers, I'm pretty sure, are all guaranteed entry into the postseason. I think those first 4 have home games guaranteed. If some persnickety stats nerd out there would like to tell me differently, please do. I am all ears. Anyway, switching over to the Gallagher Premiership, and just looking quickly, there were 3 games remaining. Things got started with Leicester hosting Sale. The Tigers were too much for the Sharks, a lesson we all learned from nature programs, I'm pretty sure. 44-34. Saracens humiliated the already plenty humiliated Newcastle Falcons by a stunning 75-28. That means more than one 100-point plus game in at least the last 3 or 4 weeks. What is even happening? Bristol, who were featuring the 50th appearance of one AJ McGinty, defeated Bath 36-14. The Bears scored 6 tries, including a nice one from Ibitoye and another from Big Bill Mata. Nice to see him uninjured. My Skitto Harlequins doubled up Gloucester 38-19. Finally, on Sunday, it was the obvious choice for the game to avoid at all costs. Stupid Exeter at home for Northampton, and it ended up with a bizarro world 42-14. What happened? So that means with 2 more rounds to go, Bath are the only team assured of a playoff appearance, technically, while Leicester are 10 points off the pace. Bristol, sorry, I have to clean my glasses and reread that because it can't be right, can it? Nope, seems correct. Bristol Bears are in 3rd place, while Sale occupy 4th thanks to a points differential advantage over the Saracens. And get this, Saracens' points differential this season, want to take a guess? Yeah, it's 34. 16 games played, and they've scored only 34 more points than their opposition. That's 2 point nothing at all points per game. And keep in mind, They just beat the Falcons by 47 points. I'm sorry. How does any of this make sense? Anyway, crazy Gloucester are still in with a puncher's chance, and my silly Harlequins might be nutty enough to make the final weekend count. But, Leinster slaying Northampton Saints, they are eliminated, as well as stupid Exeter and the aforementioned Newcastle Falcons RIP. Anyway, switching over to France for the top 14. There were only 6 fixtures this weekend. They postponed their game against Clermont out of respect for, and I'm apologizing in advance if I'm bungling the pronunciation, I think it's Josiah Rasuke. He tragically died in a car accident just a few days ago on his way to training. I read a really, really sad story and a tragic end for the 30-year-old. He was a brilliant player, and I honestly wish I had something profound to say. The games we did have included Lyon hosting a nail-biter against Pau. That was 27-29 at the final score. Racing, they drew with Bayonne 24 all around. Vannes, they just barely lost at home to La Rochelle 29-30. Ouch. And Perpignan, they eked out one against Stade Francais 20-18. A lot of close games this weekend. On Sunday, Parole City, they were hosting my Border Beagles, Ube. There was some foul play early on by the visitors, and the hosts were quick to protest to the ref, saying, "That's our job," or so I assumed. Ube, they were fielding a reduced side, and they looked like they'd written this one off before they even made the trip. As the host team went up 24-3, they gave us a shot of Stuart Hogg applauding in the crowd, which I assume meant the authorities were able to locate him quickly. My guys, they were down 31-10 at the break, but the good news for me was friend of the pod, Robbie Knock, was on comms. Thank God, he's so good. And I feel like he just hasn't gotten enough games this season. I think we've got some new dudes, and they seem to be spreading it around a little bit, but here's a hint. Top 14, stick with Robbie Knock. Anyway, Joey Carberry, he was great for Ube, but in a losing effort, they really didn't show up, literally and figuratively. And the bad guys nabbed another one, 46-27. Holy cow. But, of course, the game of the week in the top 14 had to be Toulon versus Toulouse. I already mentioned Hugh once. I understand now he was there singing the Pilou Pilou, which, of course, we didn't get audio for. Again, they blew it again. They kind of had a whisper of it, but man, oh man. Anyway, despite Toulouse being without several stars you could probably name, they looked dominant early, and after a penalty try, Baptiste Serin was sent to the bin to the audible chagrin of the throngs on hand. It was a cavalcade of bad news for the home side, with Baptiste Serin getting a second yellow card shortly after coming back on to earn a de facto red. It was kind of nutty. Despite all this, it was 13-14 at the break, and side note, this one was played at the Stade Velodrome in Marseille, and they never really said why, but wow, what a venue. It really brought back some World Cup memories. As the visitors pulled away, a great stat. In the previous 15 meetings, the home team had won every time, but that streak was officially broken. 8 tries to 1, 16-50, and the veneer of invulnerability at Toulon is looking a bit tarnished. These last few weeks have been interesting. More on that, I suppose, next week. Okay, swinging down to the other hemisphere for Super Rugby Pacific, it was round 13, and the Drua were hosting the Blues. That got things started once again. Where has the crowd gone? Were they that fair weather fans that they are just ready to not show up when the writing is kind of on the season wall? Massive difference from earlier in the year. Bit disappointing. But anyway, I assume that's how the fans felt as well. So either way, the Drua had never beaten the Blues, and it didn't look like today would be the day either. The Blues came out firing. They were shutting out their host 22-0 at halftime, with Bowden Barrett again having a masterful game. Thanks to the efforts of a man who has one of my favorite all-time names, Celestino Ravutamanda, the Drua weren't shut out entirely by the end, but it was a huge win for the visitors, 5-34. Next up, the Waratahs, they were hosting the Reds, who've been on a bit of a skid lately, but I was expecting a good one. The Tars, they were up early, but the Reds looked determined. A yellow card against the home side looked like it might have turned the tables. The comms mentioned an interview, by the way, with Taniela Tupou, so I looked it up, and it was pretty emotional. It was really about sort of anticipating not being picked for the Lions tour and how he's really struggling to perform this season. If you're interested, I linked to the article in the show notes. Seems like a pretty great guy. In any event, there was a really scary moment when Sua Ali'i took a knee to the temple, was immediately knocked unconscious. Really nasty sight. To be fair, I tend to complain a lot here about how they treat head injuries in Super Rugby. This time, they got it right. They reacted immediately. They stopped the game. They just handled everything just as it should be. Amazing to think that Sua Ali'i left rugby league only to get knocked out cold in Union. Anyway, As the rains poured in, it was all tied up, 14-all at the break, and it was still tied with under 5 minutes to go. An incredible kick pass from Daugunu set up the go-ahead try for the Reds, and that was all she wrote. A bitter 21-28 defeat for the Taz. They look like they're in big trouble. We also had the Western Force versus the Brumbies. They said this was the 20th anniversary of Western Force rugby, which kind of feels like a lot until you recall that the Taz-Reds rivalry is over 140 years old. Last time we saw these teams meet, the Force got a rare win in Canberra in an 87-point shootout, and it was another close one today. We were tied as the clock hit 40, but Brumbies kept powering on and got that back-breaking try to take the lead at halftime. The Force, they were on a one-try per half quota, apparently. The Brumbies were just too much for them in Perth, winning 14-33 and exacting that sweet, sweet revenge. Of course, our clear game of the week in Super Rugby had to be the Crusaders hosting the Chiefs, both sides fully loaded with All Blacks and looking to secure the top spot on the table. It was a chilly night in Christchurch as the players ran out in front of the sellout crowd to the strains of Copeland's Fanfare for the Common Man. And it's fair to say I was pretty fired up. Damian McKenzie, he was back starting at 10. It was, it was still leading the comp. He is still leading the comp in points scored, despite missing some time with a hand injury. It was a chippy one, as you'd expect, but the Crusaders, they looked dominant through most of the first half until a last-minute try got the visitors within 19-10 as we went to the lockers. The Comps found themselves unable to resist, shouting, "The Mac is back!" as McKenzie got over for a try, and Leroy Carter, Mr. Lightning, nabbed the Chiefs their first lead of the night soon after. It was all Chiefs from there on out. Samasoni Takioho having a huge impact off the bench. It was only the fourth time in history that the Chiefs had beaten the Crusaders twice in the same season. A statement win for the table toppers, 19-35. Huge. Swinging back over here to the United States, Major League Rugby, our game of the week was obviously my beloved Free Jacks taking on the Pupsters of Chicago, and I will come clean. Didn't make it to this game. Not because I didn't want to, because it was a big game for my son, and the logistics were just too hairy for it all to work out any other way. Anyway, shout out to the incredible people in our section. We missed you. And the good news was it was yet another tidy win for my beloved Free Jacks. The Pups have been doing well. I was honestly worried about this one, but in the end, it was a 27-17 victory, 4 tries to 3, with Balikana and Jedzilla both adding to their season totals. Recent fan favorite Brock Webster led the match with 3 offloads, though he hasn't been that hasn't been what we love him for in general. And around the horn, we also had NOLA hosting Miami. The Gold continued to confound, losing to an admittedly dangerous Sharks team 19-25. San Diego dropped one at home to the always dangerous Houston Thundercats 20-37, and LA beat Anthem 45-17. Still no wins for stupidly named Anthem. So we've still got Utah versus Seattle. That's a Storm Week fixture tonight, actually. And finally, another non-weekend match, a Tuesday clash between DC and NOLA. Can that even be right? Like NOLA play on a Friday, then a Tuesday? That is brutal. Of course, those 2 games haven't happened yet, so as I record this, but I will take a closer look and try to update people, I guess, on social media. Meanwhile, over in the WER, we had 2 matches, starting with the Twin Cities Gemini hosting table-topping Denver Onyx. Denver continued their rampaging ways, doubling up their hosts 19-38. That's twice that we had that exact scoreline this weekend. That was on Friday, and on Saturday, my Banshees were off to California to try to refine some form against the Bay Breakers. Friend of the pod, Pierce, was there. If you're watching on YouTube, the slide you're looking at, I should say, is I'm sorry. I have a slide from Pierce that he sent me, and then I switched it out at the last second, and I forgot that I did that. I apologize to the YouTube people, and I will try to fix it, and I will post that pic as well. Pierce, in fact, there's a lot of cute ones there in the family, too. If any of those should not be shared, let me know, but I'd be happy to post those because they really came out great. Anyway, it was, in fact, a bounce-back performance for my Banshees, who were up a little bit by halftime, but really showed their depth and pulled away in the second half, winning 28-49. This was the one we needed after the last couple weeks. The countdown is on till I get to see them in person. I simply can't wait. This competition is in full flight. We just need Chicago to get off the schneid, ideally against New York. Random complaint here. So I know this makes me seem like a super old dude, but because the WER audience is heavily Instagram and TikTok based, their media is mostly for phones. Like the images you can find, it's just not easy, and they're all kind of low res and vertical, which makes it hard for me personally to make good slides for these games. That's why I wanted to use a Pierce slide, and then I switched back to this one. But if you're watching right now, you can see it's fuzzy because it's a low res pic from Instagram. Anyway, obviously this is a me problem more than a them problem, but maybe we put some high res pics from the games up every now and then, like on the actual website. Maybe anyone, I'm happy to do it if I can. Anyway, I hadn't even previewed this one last week. I don't think. I chatted briefly about it with Alice Soper and hinted at it with Rugby Julia. But the Pacific 4 is also underway. Well, oh well. Let us not overlook that this series had already kicked off the week before, although I'm not going to be rehashing that game. This weekend, though, we had the Black Ferns facing the Wallaroos. There were, to me at least, a lot of unfamiliar faces on both sides, actually, but it was impossible to miss Ruhe Demant leading a stirring haka to start the proceedings. Not going to lie, it was a bit of a one-way street. The Kiwis up 26-0 in the second half before the Aussies got on the board. Side note, Braxton Sorensen McGee nabbed a brace on debut, though the first one really should have been disallowed. It was a bit of a brain fart for the ref. We saw the same replay we all did. She was basically dribbling the ball. But anyway, it wouldn't have made it much difference in the long run. 12-38 was your final score. The Wallaroos looked a bit shell-shocked, gotta say. Well, by the music, you'll know it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck Award. And this week, the award goes to Peter O'Mahony. I know, this will be a very controversial pick, but your career, heading off into the twilight, I realize I'm going to miss you, you beautiful bastard. You're the player who, if he's on your team, you'd seriously consider getting a tattoo of him somewhere on your body. But if you support any other team, you just have to stop yourself from wishing he gets hurt. Mr. O'Mahony, people said you might be washed up before the World Cup in Japan in 2019, but you blew everyone away in that tournament until the quarterfinals. And you reinvented yourself as a sly leader and botanist for your own team. You're truly one of the greats. It's ironic that the first time I realized I hated you was when you cheap-shotted Stuart Hogg and sent him to the hospital and still managed to earn player of the match, while now I feel like that you didn't quite finish the job. Peter O'Mahony, Munster and Irish legend, congratulations to you, for you are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done, sir. Okay, that brings us to our updates and previews, and oh boy, there's a lot of good stuff on the way. It's the final round of the URC, it's the penultimate round in the Prem, the Prem-ultimate round, perhaps? Anyway, you know the deal. All the rugby that's happening is covered here, and if I've missed anything, get in touch and let me know. I clearly just can't get enough. Well, my friends, that does it for another week. I'm exhausted. Not gonna lie, feeling a little down about how the pod has been not growing recently, but I've got some schemed up ideas, got some thoughts, got some new guests coming, and I've got some really cool news, that's seriously all I'm going to tell you about it right now. But there will be teases to come because it's going to be a great summer of rugby, and maybe remember on Seinfeld there was like Summer of George. This could be the summer of the scrum of the earth, but we'll have to see. In any event, cheers, talk to you soon, and be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, Nate.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?
I wish I could get up at 11:30 every morning after being out all night God knows where.